From the rise of Paul Atreides as Muad'Dib in 10,191 after the Guild, the Imperium enters an age reshaped by visions that ripple across millennia. Paul's ascension sparks a galactic jihad that carves new borders across the stars, and his decisions set in motion forces that will reshape humanity long after his death. Centuries later, his son Leto II ascends as the God Emperor and imposes the Golden Path, ruling for more than 3,500 years and scattering humanity across uncharted space to ensure its survival. When Leto II dies in approximately 13,725 AG, the rigid order he maintained fractures instantly, unleashing 1,500 years of dispersion, cultural mutation, and civilizational drift. By the time of Heretics of Dune and Chapterhouse, nearly 5,000 years have passed since Paul first walked the deserts of Arrakis, and the galaxy now stands at a precipice shaped by every triumph and sacrifice of the Atreides line, converging toward a crisis that will determine the fate of the Imperium. The closing movements of Heretics of Dune cast a long shadow across the Imperium. On Arrakis, converging forces collide under the pressure of prophecy and rebellion. The Honored Matres, a violent sisterhood forged in the deep reaches of the Scattering, hurl themselves into the conflict. They return from unknown frontiers shaped by conquest and terror, driven by practices built on absolute domination and fueled by a rage sharpened by fear. Pursued by a threat they refuse to name, they lash out at every obstacle in their path. Enraged by the losses they suffered during their hunt across space, they unleash their full fury against the desert world. Their weapons scour the surface until rock liquefies and cities melt into glass. Every remaining worm dies in the inferno. Arrakis, cradle of empire and religion, disappears in a single act of annihilation, leaving only those who escape to remember what it once was. Every community anchored to the dunes is erased. Arrakis becomes a memory carried only by those who fled. A hidden vessel receives a select group fleeing the chaos, carrying with them a single surviving sandworm. Despite the destruction sweeping across the planet, this small ship breaks free from the encirclement, slipping past the annihilating fire of the Honored Matres. Its escape preserves the last living thread of Arrakis' cycle and sets in motion the transformation awaiting Chapterhouse, the bastion world of the Bene Gesserit. The escape toward Chapterhouse carries a single living fragment of that lost ecosystem. A young worm, confined within the ship, holds the last link to an ancient cycle. When the fugitives reach the Sisterhood's homeworld, the creature is submerged in controlled reservoirs. The released sand trout spread across the temperate soil, reshaping moisture patterns and bending entire biomes toward dryness. What begins as scattered patches of altered ground grows into an expanding belt of heat and shifting terrain. Chapterhouse, once a moderate planet shaped by orchards, training gardens, and cloistered academies, transforms into a place destined to inherit the role of Arrakis. Its skies dim under rising dust, its air warms. Regions once green begin to ripple with forming dunes. The Sisterhood watches these changes with equal measures of urgency and reverence. A new desert takes shape under their guidance, carrying the promise of future worms and the rebirth of spice. The Bene Gesserit, ancient architects of human discipline, find themselves pressed into a corner of dwindling influence. Their subtle dominance once operated through observation and guidance. That confidence falters under the shadow of a violent force returning from the far reaches of human dispersion. This narrative explores the chaos surrounding the Sisterhood as it struggles to avoid extinction. It follows the transformations, both physical and ideological, that take place on the planet Chapterhouse. Here, survival becomes intertwined with creation. Here, the possible rebirth of a desert and its cyclical promise of spice becomes the last refuge for an order that once shaped empires. After the death of the God Emperor, humanity bursts outward in a vast scattering, fleeing into uncharted space to escape the rigid control that had bound them for millennia. The Honored Matres carry an origin shaped by the long roads beyond the scattering, a span of time and distance measured not only in starfields crossed, but in the trauma etched into their collective behavior. Fragments of their past surface through scattered testimony, each hinting at societies forged in relentless conflict, where entire populations rose and fell within cycles of conquest so rapid that stability became an illusion. Their discipline forms around overwhelming physical control and swift, decisive action. A way of life refined in territories where hesitation meant extinction, and where power survived only when displayed with absolute force. Every structure within their order responds to a hierarchy sustained through fear and conditioned loyalty, crafted through psychological techniques learned in distant civilizations and perfected during the long centuries of flight. Pleasure and pain act as instruments of command, applied with practiced precision to shape obedience so ingrained that dissent becomes physically difficult. Their leaders engineer environments in which personal identity dissolves into the demands of the collective, a bond forged not by trust, but by shared exposure to brutality and the constant threat of pursuit. They carry the memory of worlds lost and adversaries never fully described, forces so formidable that even the Matres' ferocity appears shaped by lingering dread. This weight stretches across their actions, influencing how they dominate conquered planets, how they drive their fleets without pause, and how they react with disproportionate violence to even minor resistance. Their past becomes the engine of their present, pushing them through the Imperium like a storm seeking escape from a deeper darkness. Their campaign begins with the destruction of the Bene Tleilax, the great vats that once birthed Gholas, the laboratories where masters scrutinized every genetic twitch. Everything is turned to ash. Tleilaxu remnants leave behind ruins filled with warped rubble and melted streets. Their intense secrecy could not shield them from the overwhelming aggression that accompanied the return of these Honored Matres. The Sisterhood gradually understands that the Honored Matres flee a power far greater than anything they unleash. This realization spreads through quiet analyses and the unsettling patterns observed in Matres strategy. The haste with which they abandon captured worlds, the disproportionate brutality they apply to even minor resistance, and the strange mix of terror and rage that shapes their every advance. Such behavior suggests not simple conquest but flight. Their cruelty carries the sharp edge of desperation, as though every atrocity serves to buy moments rather than victories. Bene Gesserit observers note how Matre fleets move in waves marked by frantic acceleration, how commanders strike without reconnaissance, and how entire populations disappear under bombardments carried out with panicked precision. These signs merge into a single conclusion. Something vast presses on their heels. Whispers among Reverend Mothers speak of a predator from the remote zones of the scattering, a force refined by centuries of conflict far beyond the Imperium's maps. This possibility unsettles even the most disciplined analysts. What kind of enemy could drive such a ferocious order into a frenzy of destruction? What intelligence, born in distant star fields, tracks them across the void? The unanswered questions multiply. Scholars attempt to project possibilities, but the gaps in knowledge are immense. Predictions collapse into speculation. The galaxy enters a state of anxious waiting, its great houses sensing a storm they cannot yet name. This fear settles into the Sisterhood like a distant tremor. It shapes their long-term strategies and forces them to weigh risks in ways they once considered unthinkable. Attention spreads across the Imperium, subtle yet unmistakable, as every power structure begins to wonder whether the returning Matre are only the first shadow cast by something far more overwhelming. Darwi O'Drade, a Reverend Mother shaped by both strict Bene Gesserit training and an unusual openness to intuition, assumes leadership at a moment defined by risk. Her training merges Bene Gesserit observation with empathy, inherited from unconventional bonds. She sees beyond rigid doctrine, Every decision requires balance between instinct and calculated discipline. The Sisterhood chooses to transform Chapterhouse into a new Arrakis, and this decision unfolds across vast stretches of territory, reshaped through engineering on an unprecedented scale. The planet holds no natural deserts, yet Atreides commits to altering entire continents through meticulous planning and a vision grounded in both ecological memory and political necessity. Massive climate engines carve the first foundations of dunes, their vibrations rolling across open plains as shifting sand begins to accumulate in deliberate patterns. Atmospheric regulators adjust heat flows with incremental precision, creating rising thermal gradients that push moisture outward and force entire regions to dry into pale, shimmering expanses. Each mechanical adjustment, each redirected wind current, each rebalanced layer of soil draws the planet closer to the ancient ecology that once nurtured Shai-Hulud. This transformation becomes a slow, planetary heartbeat, felt in every grain of reshaped land as Chapterhouse begins its long metamorphosis into a world that can once again cradle the cycle of the sandworm. Shiana, a young woman once raised among the priests of Arrakis and later revered for her unique ability to command sandworms, enters this new chapter of history as a living conduit to everything the desert once embodied. Her bond with sand trout awakens ancestral instincts that stretch back to the earliest rhythms of the worm cycle, granting her an instinctive understanding of how deserts form, breathe, and sustain the colossal creatures that once dictated the fate of empires. As the Bene Gesserit prepare Chapterhouse for its transformation, Shiana becomes the quiet architect of the planet's new ecology, her presence turning theory into viable terrain. Under her meticulous supervision, the first sand trout are released into carefully prepared basins, seeking moisture with single-minded purpose. Their movements reshape the ground as they link together beneath the soil, sealing water away and forcing the surface to dry into coarse layers that begin to drift and slide across the forming desert. Tidal sands begin to form, slow at first, then deepening into a subtle pulse that rolls across open ground, like the tentative heartbeat of a desert not yet awake. What begins as scattered pockets of hardened terrain evolves into a vast breathing expanse. The moment the first true sandworm emerges becomes a turning point in the Sisterhood's struggle for survival. Rising from a freshwater pit warped by biological pressure and the cumulative labor of thousands of sand trout, the creature ascends in a spiral of displaced earth and seething momentum. Its ridged body splits the air with a roar that seems to echo memories carried across millennia. In that instant, Chapterhouse ceases to be merely a sanctuary or a stronghold. It becomes the cradle of a reborn force that once shaped religions, economies, and destinies. The appearance of this first worm marks not only ecological success, but the beginning of a new era, one forged from the ruins of Arrakis and sustained now on this world transformed by design and necessity. The Sisterhood depends upon this creature for survival. Without spice, their long chain of memories crumbles, their political weight evaporates. The attempt to recreate the desert becomes a symbol of determination. It anchors their belief that order may rise again from threatened foundations. Miles Teg, once the legendary Bashar of the Bene Gesserit, and famed for the preternatural speed he unlocked under duress, perished in a final battle fought in the cold reaches of space, leaving behind a reputation so formidable that some remarked on how his physical presence and austere features resembled depictions of Leto I. Miles Teg returns through Ghola resurrection, his reborn body carrying layers of dormant brilliance woven into every cell, and the Sisterhood commits immense resources to awaken these latent memories. Technicians and Reverend Mothers work through carefully modulated stimuli and exposure to key sensory triggers designed to coax forth instincts forged across a lifetime of mastery. Each stage in the process unfolds with painstaking precision, aimed at reigniting the tactical genius that once reshaped the outcomes of entire campaigns. The path remains slow, marked by moments where instinct surfaces, only to retreat again into the deep recesses of genetic memory, and his caretakers must navigate not only loyalty and trauma, but also reflexes tied to past oaths and forgotten battlegrounds. Duncan, Idaho stands at the center of this effort, carrying lifetimes of service compressed into a mind sharpened by countless iterations of rebirth. Memories of battles fought, loyalties pledged, and betrayals endured flicker through him with a density that few outside the sisterhood can comprehend. His presence becomes both a stabilizing anchor for Teg's awakening and an unpredictable force that the Bene Gesserit approach with caution. Leaders within the Order recognize that Duncan, shaped by so many identities and histories, holds potential to influence events in ways no Reverend Mother can fully anticipate. Atreides perceives this duality clearly, treating him as both partner in strategy and instrument of necessity. As the sessions progress, the weight placed upon Duncan grows steadily heavier. He senses the unspoken expectations projected onto him, the subtle manipulations carried in tones of voice, the carefully phrased requests designed to draw out insights he does not always wish to share. Echoes of earlier incarnations whisper warnings, sharpening his awareness of the sisterhood's methods. Even in moments shaped by trust or quiet companionship, he notices how every gesture and every calculated pause reflects a deeper design. Amid affection and shared purpose, Duncan remains alert to the currents of influence threading through the sisterhood's plans, fully aware that he stands at a crossroads where memory and identity converge. Scytale, once a face dancer master of the Bene Tleilax and a key conspirator during the events of Dune Messiah, carries a legacy shaped by manipulation and a lifetime spent navigating the ambitions of others. He first entered history's spotlight as the architect of the plot to control Paul Atreides through a Ghola of Duncan, Idaho, only to meet death when the plan collapsed. His reappearance centuries later in Heretics of Dune, restored as a new incarnation shaped by Tleilaxu design, reflects the enduring resilience of his order and the long shadows cast by their schemes. Scytale emerges in Chapterhouse not as a warrior or a strategist, but as the final voice of a people annihilated in a single, overwhelming strike. Once a face dancer master, diplomat, manipulator, and architect of the conspiracy against Paul Atreides during Dune Messiah, he carried the authority of a Tleilaxu elder and the subtlety of a cultural engineer. His earlier death at the hands of Paul marked the collapse of one plot, yet the Tleilaxu restored him centuries later, recrafted as a Ghola shaped by the same secretive design philosophy that created their perfect servants and their most dangerous creations. This re-embodied Scytale stands now as the sole surviving Tleilaxu master, the last bearer of a genetic and spiritual lineage that stretches across millennia. With the fall of the Bene Tleilax under the onslaught of the Honored Matres, every laboratory, every axolotl tank, every master archivist, and every living repository of their knowledge perishes. Only Scytale escapes destruction, carrying within his mind the distilled memory of an entire civilization, its rituals, its ambitions, and the guarded mysteries that shaped its place in the Imperium. More than a survivor, Scytale functions as the living archive of the Tleilaxu. His body contains refined genetic signatures engineered through generations of self-directed evolution. His mind holds the sacred structure of the Great Belief, the foundational doctrine asserting that the universe moves toward a perfected biological destiny. This belief, learned through whispered rites and intimate apprenticeship, once united the Tleilaxu masters in purpose and gave their experiments a sense of divine inevitability. Through Scytale, fragments of this worldview remain alive, even as the culture that shaped it is reduced to ash. His significance extends beyond spiritual memory. He preserves secrets capable of rewriting the political and biological balance of the Imperium. Among these, none is more dangerous than his knowledge of synthetic spice, a Tleilaxu triumph never fully revealed to the great powers of the Old Imperium. Its existence remains unproven to most, yet the Bene Gesserit understand that if the key resides anywhere, it is within Scytale's guarded mind. Spice controls memory, navigation, and prophecy. Whoever commands its production commands the conditions of survival. Scytale alone holds the blueprint for a future in which spice could be created independent of desert and worm. He also carries a relic of profound potential, a capsule of preserved genetic cells harvested from figures whose names echo across human mythology. Tyrants and heroes, savants and monsters. Every sample represents a possible rebirth. To the Tleilaxu, these cells are more than archives. They are seeds of influence, extensions of power cast into the future. Scytale guards them not merely for bargaining, but out of a deep cultural instinct to preserve continuity, to ensure that even in extinction, the Tleilaxu hand remains present in the unfolding of human destiny. The Bene Gesserit attempt to penetrate his defenses by studying the logic of the Great Belief, hoping to anchor their negotiations in a pressure point drawn from his cultural roots. But their understanding remains incomplete. Every misstep exposes only the depth of their ignorance. Scytale observes these efforts with patient contempt, recognizing how little they grasp of Tleilaxu's spiritual structure, or the layered terrors encoded in their traditions. He permits small victories to maintain his value, but never yields ground that would risk the full revelation of his knowledge. Isolated yet indispensable, Scytale becomes a figure of quiet tension within the Sisterhood's sphere of influence. He studies their fractures with meticulous interest. He maps their agendas. He watches the shifting balance between ideology and desperation. Beneath his composure, he cultivates strategies for every possible future, reintegration or long-term manipulation. His motives remain coiled, his loyalties ambiguous, but his importance is undeniable. Through him survives not only the memory of the Bene Tleilax, but the possibility of entire new histories branching outward from their forgotten genius. Lampadas once served as a sanctuary for learning within the Sisterhood, a place where Reverend Mothers studied, taught, and transmitted the deepest strata of their shared memory. Its destruction under Honored Matres assault represents a tragedy deeper than physical loss, for Lampadas held centuries of disciplined thought and the living essence of Bene Gesserit identity. Lucille, an esteemed Reverend Mother entrusted with safeguarding this legacy, carries within her the responsibility of preserving its second memories. These are not simple recollections, but a vast layered accumulation of ancestral experiences and insights that each Reverend Mother inherits during the spice agony. They form a reservoir of guidance, a living chorus of voices shaped across countless generations, allowing the Sisterhood to act with a depth of wisdom impossible for any single lifetime. During her escape, her ship crashes onto Gamu. This world carries a grim legacy of enslavement and violence. Survival depends on quick thinking and trust. Aid arrives from the Israel Secret, a hidden community guided by strict discipline and ancestral tradition. They shelter her and help conceal the stored memories. The elders of the Israel Secret receive Lucille's trust at a moment shaped by urgency, for their hidden community shelters her with sincere intent, yet stands under unbearable pressure. They walk a narrow line between survival and annihilation, terrified that discovery will bring the Honored Matres' wrath upon every family under their protection. Fearing extinction, they resolve to surrender Lucille as the only path to preserve their enclave. This decision becomes a quiet, devastating betrayal carried out in trembling silence, driven not by malice but by desperation. Before the handover, Lucille senses that time is collapsing around her. Recognizing both the peril to the Israel Secret and the approaching threat of the Matre, she entrusts her second memories to Rebecca, a young woman whose lineage blends deep ancestral tradition, with the unexpected awakening of Reverend Mother abilities outside Bene Gesserit training. Rebecca absorbs the memories in an act that binds her to Lampadas' legacy and charges her with reaching Chapterhouse to deliver what must not be lost. When the Honored Matre finally sees Lucille, her captors seek answers with ruthless efficiency. Dama, a powerful matre, subjects her to interrogation. Their confrontation becomes a clash of ideology. Lucille defends the Sisterhood's nuanced approach to power. Dama responds with force. Lucille faces execution. Her final act ensures the transfer of Lampadas' memories to Rebecca. This single gesture preserves the intellectual and spiritual continuity of the Sisterhood. The Fall of Lampadas ignites a fierce determination within the Bene Gesserit, stirring not only grief but a cold, deliberate resolve to strike back with the precision for which they are known. Their fighters, drawn from training centers scattered across Chapterhouse and its satellite worlds, mobilize into a coordinated campaign aimed at dismantling Honored Matre strongholds wherever intelligence can trace their influence. In the first phase of this retaliation, Bashar Burzmali takes command of the defensive effort. He is a seasoned Bene Gesserit commander, renowned for his calm precision and unwavering discipline, a figure whose battlefield composure has become almost legendary within Sisterhood circles. He attempts to shield the last evacuation corridors leading away from Lampadas. He commands his forces with disciplined clarity, orchestrating defensive patterns that slow the Matre advance through layers of misdirection and sacrificial feints. For a brief moment, his maneuvers create the illusion that the planet's knowledge sanctuaries might be preserved, yet the Honored Matre arrive with overwhelming firepower and an aggression sharpened by fear, tearing through every defensive line with chaotic intensity. Even the most carefully planned countermeasures falter under the torrent of destruction unleashed upon Lampadas. Though the general manages to extract a fraction of his forces, preserving vital strategic experience that would otherwise be lost, he cannot halt the devastation descending upon the planet. Lampadas, with its libraries, its training cloisters, and its centuries of accumulated wisdom, collapses into ruin despite his efforts. The Sisterhood marks the event not as a failure of planning, but as evidence of the storm now gathering across the Imperium, a force against which even their greatest discipline strains to endure. The young Ghola of Miles Teg rises as a commander whose instincts awaken with startling rapidity, as though the echoes of countless Atreides tacticians stir within his restored flesh. His mind sharpens quickly, inheriting the disciplined grace of his original self while absorbing new layers of strategic intuition. In the first clashes on Gamu, he maneuvers his forces with a precision that evokes ancient Atreides battlefield doctrine, sweeping feints that lure opponents into self-inflicted chaos, sudden pivots that fracture enemy formations, and coordinated assaults, timed to exploit even the slightest lapse in Matre discipline. These early victories spread whispers through the Sisterhood, rumors of a commander whose genius grows with every engagement. As the conflict widens, his role becomes instrumental in the immense campaign leading toward Junction. There, amid the cold light of distant stars, he directs fleets through waves of Honored Matre reinforcements, turning debris fields into ambush corridors, and using the gravitational pull of nearby moons to mask entire battle groups. His strategies recall the layered maneuvers once favored by the Atreides during the Old Imperium, combining elegance with ruthless efficiency. Junction becomes the stage of his greatest triumphs. Coordinated strikes executed across multiple orbits and ground assaults launched so swiftly that enemy positions collapse before reinforcements can respond. Yet even as these victories accumulate, the tide shifts abruptly when the Honored Matre unveil a devastating superweapon, a construct of terrifying potency forged from technologies unknown within the Imperium. Rumors whisper that this instrument of destruction was not of their making, but unearthed in the deep wilds of the Scattering, recovered from the ruins of a star-faring species whose name no matre dares to speak aloud. Its energy signatures defy conventional analysis, and its activation unleashes forces capable of ripping apart fleets as though they were no more substantial than drifting sand. The young Teg watches his hard-won lines disintegrate in moments, entire formations collapsing under waves of annihilating fire that blot out Junction's orbit. The surface below glows red and dim beneath the storms of devastation, each eruption marking another fragment of his strategy shattered beyond repair. Amid this collapse, the arrival of Murbella introduces a force shaped by a turbulent history. Once an acolyte of the Honored Matres who was captured by the Bene Gesserit and heretics of Dune, she endured intense retraining, exposure to Reverend Mother discipline, and a profound reshaping of identity that bound her fate to both orders. She enters the battlefield on Junction with a purpose sharpened by these dual legacies, carrying within her the instincts of a matre and the analytical depth of a Bene Gesserit. Her presence marks the beginning of a transformation that will redefine the destinies of both sisterhoods forever. Murbella arrives on Junction driven by fierce intuition and hidden ambition. As she infiltrates the last fortified chambers at the heart of Junction, chaos reigns among the Matres. Their command structure, once rigid and unquestioned, fractures under fear. Logno, nominally their leader after Dama's death, clings to authority through instinct rather than skill. The presence of Murbella disrupts this wavering hierarchy the moment she enters. Every matre in the chamber senses the threat she represents, a woman who knows their methods intimately, yet moves with a Bene Gesserit's lethal precision. A ritual challenge becomes inevitable. The Honored Matres acknowledge only power displayed openly and without hesitation. Murbella issues her demand for leadership not with words but with posture, breath control, and the unmistakable cadence of a matre preparing for combat. The room falls silent. Logno must answer. To refuse would be to surrender the legitimacy of her rule. The duel begins in an explosion of motion. Matre training emphasizes overwhelming force delivered in the first heartbeat. Bene Gesserit technique prizes perception and prediction. Murbella commands both. She reads Logno's intention before the strike begins, mirrors it for a fraction of a second, then unravels it with a counter-movement so fluid it borders on inevitability. The fight ends quickly. Logno collapses, defeated with a blend of precision and violence that stuns the onlookers into obedience. In that moment, Murbella becomes the great Honored Matre, not through bloodline or survival, but through the unmistakable assertion of superior strength. The surrounding Matre, conditioned for centuries to bow before undeniable dominance, yield to her without protest. Their submission is instinctive and absolute. Junction burns around her, Bene Gesserit formations falling one after another as the Matre superweapon tears through the last organized defenses. Amid the chaos, Murbella seizes control of the Honored Matre and immediately redirects their fractured command. Word spreads through the surviving sisterhood fighters that a new Matre leader has emerged, one whose movements carry the unmistakable sharpness of Bene Gesserit training. Atreides is already dead by the time Murbella reaches the areas where the last Bene Gesserit ground forces attempt to regroup. The Mother Superior's body lies among the ruins, her final moments spent stabilizing the line long enough for messages and survivors to escape the battlefield. Murbella steps into the void left by her death, not through ceremony but through necessity. Her victory over Logno, her command of the Matre, and the imprint of Atreides' earlier choices converge into a single moment of recognition among the scattered Reverend Mothers. Leadership has passed to her. In this instant, Murbella assumes both mantles, Mother Superior and Great Honored Matre. Two sisterhoods, once bound to opposition by history and instinct, converge under one will forged from the strengths of each. Her arrival on Junction does not merely alter the outcome of a collapsing front. It closes a long era of division and forces the birth of another shaped by unity and the uncertain horizon beyond the scattering. Duncan, Idaho, and Shiana begin preparing their escape as the political order reshapes itself under Murbella's new rule. The chaos surrounding Junction reveals that the newly unified sisterhood will attempt to consolidate every source of power within its reach, including the No Ship and all those who travel within it. Duncan senses the tightening net long before any formal decree is spoken. Countless memories inherited through successive incarnations warn him how institutions behave when cornered by threats they barely understand, and he recognizes the quiet shift in the Bene Gesserit toward containment rather than trust. Shiana shares his unease, her ability to command worms, her lineage tied to the God Emperor's unpredictable genetic legacy, and her growing influence among the newly formed community make her far too significant to leave unmonitored. Under Murbella's rule, she would be studied, guided, and eventually steered into roles she has not chosen. The Sisterhood's history with rare assets leaves little doubt. What begins as protection inevitably becomes control. The No Ship, long a prison disguised as sanctuary, now becomes their only path to autonomy. Its invisibility to conventional tracking systems, its null signature engines, and the subtle distortions it creates in predictive models give it the singular ability to slip between the cracks of an Imperium reorganizing itself. For Duncan and Shiana, escape is not defiance, it is the preservation of possibility. Their departure ensures that the last worm, the last traces of Leto Teng's ancient vision, and the tangled legacies carried in their genes remain free to shape futures the Sisterhood cannot script. A small colony forms aboard the ship. Shiana, now a reverend mother carrying genes that connect her to Siona's ancient legacy, holds spiritual and political significance. Scytale travels among them with guarded expressions. His concern for survival heightens. They carry a small worm descendant holding a pearl of Leto II's consciousness. This biological artifact represents unpredictable change. Its presence transforms the mission into something mythic. When the No Ship activates its systems, it moves through an invisible net laid by matriarch forces. Murbella can only observe its disappearance. The ship seems to vanish into a region no one understands. The long arc of the Imperium bends toward endings that echo the choices of its architects. Chapterhouse stands at the edge of that vast design, shaped by the remains of powers that once believed themselves eternal. The destruction of Arrakis, the fall of the Bene Tleilax, the scattering of ancient institutions, and the merging of rival sisterhoods reveal an age in which certainty dissolves and survival demands reinvention. Every force that once governed humanity fractures into fragments that seek new meaning in the wake of collapse. Yet endings in the universe of Dune never arrive as final ruptures. They unfold as transitions, places where old structures break so that new patterns may emerge. The conclusion of Chapterhouse does not close the saga. It opens a doorway into uncertainty, the space where Frank Herbert's universe thrives. Humanity advances not through stability, but through disruption, vision, and the refusal to remain confined by what has already been written. The Imperium's final moment becomes an invitation to imagine what new histories might grow from the fragments carried into the void, and how the echoes of the Atreides, the Sisterhood, and the long shadow of the God Emperor will continue to shape whatever comes next.